I'd like to share with you a lesson from Tisha B'Av on the how of giving effective criticism. In our Kinus of Tisha B'Av, we mourn the death of Zechariah the prophet, who came to a tragic end. But from his tragic death, our sages learn about the importance that when one needs to give rebuke or criticism, it must come from a place of humility. Zechariah was a prophet towards the end of the First Temple period, and he prophesied about the impending destruction of the Beis HaMikdash and the exile of the Jewish people on account of their sins. As a result of this prophecy, the king decreed that Zechariah should be executed. And even though he was a distinguished personality, he was a judge on the Beis Din, he was a prophet, he was a priest, and he was a relative of the king, nonetheless, the Jewish people stoned Zechariah to death in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash on the holy day of Yom Kippur. And the Medrash is actually quite critical of Zechariah, and to a certain extent holds him responsible for the fact that his prophecy, his words were not heard, and that ultimately brought about his own death. The Pasuk tells us, Baruch Elikim Lavsha Zechariah, the Spirit of God came and he rested upon Zechariah to bring him prophecy. Vayamid Ma'ala'am, and he stood on top of the people. And the Medrash notes that it cannot be understood literally that he was standing on the heads of the people. Rather, it means he stood above them, he stood aloof from them, and looked down upon them in their sinful ways, saying, Lama atem oivrim es mitzvahs Hashem, why are you, pointing his finger at them, why are you transgressing against the mitzvahs, the commandments of God? And because he held himself aloof, and because he looked down on the people in a critical way and a judgmental way, he met his tragic end. The Medrash contrasts this to another prophet by the name of Yachziel ben Zechariah. And Yachziel ben Zechariah had a completely different approach. When the Pasuk describes Yachziel's prophecy, it says that he was B'soich HaKahal, that he was in the midst of the people. And what does it mean in the midst of the people? Shehishva atzma lakahal, that he made himself equal, he made himself like the other people. He did not stand above them from a position of arrogance, from a position of condescension, and point a finger at them that says that you are responsible, you are liable, you are sinful, you are bad, and you are wrong. Rather, he included himself amongst them with empathy and humility to see himself as part of the people, and shared that he had his own responsibility for the same sins that he was castigating the Jewish people for. And I think this holds a powerful lesson when it comes to giving criticism. Often when we criticize, we want to stand from a position of aloofness, and we look down and point a finger at the others, saying that you did this and you did that. Whereas it takes a great deal of humility to include one in one's own rebuke, and to say that share one's own faults, share one's own shortcomings, and to make oneself equal, so that the words are not said with condescension, but rather said from a position of humility. Indeed, it was the way of Chassidim of old that when they would give rebuke to one another, they did not direct their words to the other, but rather directed their words to themselves, to their own faults that they themselves possessed. And if the others happened to have that same fault, they would benefit from hearing that self-rebuke, that self-criticism, and be able to learn. And I think that's so important, that when we say our words of criticism, they must be from a place of humility, that we see ourselves as equal, we don't see ourselves as better than the other. And then, hopefully, our words will be heeded and our message will be heard.